right, well, hello and welcome again, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for being here at this November installment of the SLPKC November webinar. What we will be talking about today is transformational leadership, the leadership style of the future. And we are so lucky to have Joshua Fredenberg with us today, who is going to share some great information, great knowledge about this topic. Engaging in this interactive session, not only are we going to learn about leadership in higher education, but also about how a generation is formed within our culture and society, but also about how we learn transformational leadership and why transformational leadership is one of the leadership styles of the future that will help emerging and seasoned leaders become more effective at leading and developing members of the millennial generation. So with that, we want to welcome you. My name is Ross Beitzel, and I'm here coming to you from the University of Georgia, and I am the chair of webinars, and so we will be delivering this webinar today for you, again, through the SLPKC Knowledge Community, Student Leadership Programs Knowledge Community from NASPA. On this next page, you can see, as we're going on, basically the mission of the SLPKC, and that is to connect higher education professionals who have a professional interest in young adult leadership and training, education, and development. And we do this from a number of ways, such as newsletters, webinars is here, spotlight awards programs, different things like that, basically to recognize exemplary programs and to cultivate a forum for the presentation of new ideas. And so with that, I want to pass it on to Joshua Fredenberg, who will be giving our presentation today. Joshua Fredenberg is not only a national recognized speaker, author, and also a leadership development expert, but he has presented thousands of leadership programs to leaders and professionals in over 43 different states across the country for the past 7 years. In addition to his speaking experience, he has a Master's of Art degree in organizational leadership, has authored a couple books on leadership and the millennial generation, serves as a co-coordinator of the Spotlight Series Award for the NASPA Student Leadership Programs Knowledge Community, and is currently pursuing his EDD in organizational leadership from Nova South University, with an emphasis on transformational leadership and generational differences. And with that, it is my esteemed honor and privilege to welcome Josh Fredenberg as he presents with us today. So Josh, please take it away.
Awesome. I want to first of all say that it's an honor and it's a pleasure to be here today with all of you. I'm really excited about our discussion. I'm really excited to be speaking with all of you about transformational leadership, the leadership style of the future. And the reason why I'm excited is because, number one, I believe that each of you are doing incredible work on your campuses, and you really should be congratulated for your work because you are making a difference into the future leaders of our nation. So I want to applaud you for that. I'm excited about the information that I'll be sharing with you today because I really do believe not only is it foundational as far as leadership success is concerned, but also leadership in the 21st century. And lastly, I'm excited to be here because I love working with Ross and Matthew, and I'm a very, very strong supporter of NASPA and the Student Leadership Programs Knowledge Community. So I'm excited and very thankful to be here today. Before I get started, I just want to let you guys know about a couple of things. Number one, if you'd like to connect with me online, I'm on Twitter at VisionXY and Facebook, Joshua Fredenberg /New York. Also, if you have any questions, please feel free to put in your questions in the Q&A box. And Ross is going to be facilitating all those questions at the end of the session. About 10 minutes, I'm going to take time to answer any of your questions. So please feel free to ask anything. And I know anytime we deal with generational differences, there's always questions that I may not talk about in the program that I'm sure I'll be able to answer for each of you as well. So make sure you're able to do that as well. Well, without further ado,
if I can actually step in and add one thing, since you're talking about Twitter and questions and whatnot, one thing I forgot to mention is to please follow us on Twitter and add to the conversation with our hashtag SALead, and that's what we'll be using as the back channel for this presentation so that those that aren't able to be here but are on Twitter will be able to join into the discussion. So sorry, Joshua, for butting in, but thank you for allowing me to kind of get that plug in there.
Oh, no problem. That's really important. Yeah, and just to reiterate, hashtag SALead. So if you guys want to continue the discussion or have comments, please definitely go there. So without further ado, we're going to get into this session dealing with transformational leadership, the leadership style of the future. And I want to begin just to ask you to think about if we were to take a snapshot of America over the past 100 years, we would discover that not only have we advanced, not only have we progressed, not only have we moved forward in a variety of different ways, but within the past 100 years, we would be able to identify there have been 25 different presidents, 2 world wars, tons of inventions, hundreds of great leaders, and then most importantly, there's been 4 distinct generations. And that's just over this 100-year period, in addition to the GI generation, we would discover that, number one, there's been the silent generation, and those are individuals born between 1925 to 1946. And according to experts, some of their core values are dedication, hard work, and respect for authority. And if we move a little bit farther, we would come to the next generation, which would be the baby boomer generation, and that would be considered those that were born from 1946 to 1964. And some of their core values would be optimism, personal gratification, and growth. And if we went a little step farther, we would come to the next generation, which is known as Generation X. And this is considered individuals born between 1964 to 1977. And some of their core values obviously would be diversity, technology, having fun, and informality. And then the last generation we would come to, we're going to do a lot of focus on today, would be the millennial generation. And this is individuals that are born from 1977 to 1994. Now, again, when I say this number, there are some people that would use the numbers 1980 to 2000. But again, when you really begin to go back to the origination of the study of the millennial generation, you'll find that it's really difficult for me to start to end at 2000, because they began studying this generation several years ago, and I think it's too early to determine the characteristics of a person when they're only about 5 or 6 years of age. So this is why I use 77 to 1994, which is actually the original numbers that they use for the millennial generation. Some say 79 or 80, but I like to use these numbers. And the core values, obviously, of this generation are considered our optimism, civic duty, confidence, and achievement. Now, these are the different generations that we have saw over the past 100 years, with a little bit of GI generation as well. And according to David Wyatt, 1993, there are 6 causes that form a generation. The first cause would be considered the traumatic or formative event, some major event that transpires within a generation. The second thing would be a shift in demographics. So demographics begin to change. The culture begins to change. I often tell people, according to research, the millennial generation is the most diverse generation in American history. The third thing that we would identify is a pivotal success or failure. So you would go back, if you were going to baby boomer generation, you would go back to the JFK assassination. You would have the Dr. King, I Have a Dream. If you were to go back to the silent generation, you would deal with the Great Depression and FDR. If you were to deal with Generation X, we'll go back to Ronald Reagan and the Cold War. And then obviously with the millennial generation, many people point to 9/11. Another cause of a generation forming is a positive voice, a positive spokesperson for a generation. Then you have the sacred space, and the last thing is a work of a people, something that was created, something that was done. These are considered, of course, according to David White, these are the 6 causes of a generation. Now, the fascinating thing about each of these generations is that these 6 causes not only affect the attitudes, the beliefs, the values, the family, the lifestyle, and the religion of a generation, but what I found in my research is that it also affects the style of leadership that is most conducive for the generation. In essence, these causes not only affect the attitudes, the beliefs, the values, the family life, the lifestyle, the religion, but it really does affect how they view leadership and how a leader can be most effective at reaching them. This is one of the things we found, and it's why I believe Meredith 2002 quotes and said she urges leaders to develop styles that are flexible and broad to different generations in the workplace, because she understands that if you're going to be effective at not only reaching, influencing different types of people within your organization from different generations, you have to be flexible to different types of styles, because certain styles are more conducive to certain groups of people than others. And now, when we study leadership, that's pretty obvious, and we understand that people are different, people have different personalities, so we understand as leaders we do have to make adjustments, but according from a generational diversity standpoint, it's important that we're aware of the adjustments we have to make as far as generations are concerned in relation to leadership styles, which ultimately means if I'm going to serve as an effective leader of the 21st century, not only must I have obviously a vision, goals, a strategic plan, structure, and different characteristics of effective leadership. But now we understand that it's vitally important that I'm aware of the different leadership styles that are most conducive for the generations of people in which I serve. In essence, as a leader, obviously we know the foundational blocks of leadership. You have to have vision, you have to have goals, you have to have structure, and several other characteristics, communication skills, and at certain points, charisma. But now I also have to understand different leadership styles and understand how to use different leadership styles that are most conducive to the generation or the group of people in which I serve. And so with that said, my goal in this session, as you guys already know, is really, number one, to provide you with a working definition of transformational leadership. By the time you get off the phone today, number one, I want to give you a working definition of transformational leadership. Number two, really quickly, I want to provide you with a quick overview of why I believe that transformational leadership is the leadership style of the future. And the last thing I want to do is I'm going to provide you with three questions that I believe we must all answer if we're going to see the results of transformational leadership. If I have time, I'll try to get into a fourth, because really there's about 8 or 9 things that I can go into. But again, because of time, I don't have time to go into everything. So I'm going to give you 3 today that some of you may have heard, but I'm going to connect it to transformational leadership. So as I would say, when I'm in front of an audience, if you have a paper and a pen, get it out, because often what we found through research is that people remember more when they write it down. So if you have a paper and pen near you, write it down, because we're going to get ready to really get into this thing. So the first question you've got to ask yourself is, what is transformational leadership? Now, again, there's several different interpretations of what transformational leadership is. And obviously, if you were to go from a scholastic perspective, we understand that James Burns in 1978, he created this concept of transformational leadership. And then, Bass, 1990, added some new things to transformational leadership. But for the basis of this webinar, I want to give you more of a simpler definition of transformational leadership. And I like to say transformational leadership is a style of leadership that enhances morale, motivation, and performance of followers through inspiration, empowerment, vision, and moral excellence. Now, again, there's obviously more dynamics to transformational leadership, but in a nutshell, I like to define it as transformational leadership is a style of leadership that enhances morale, motivation, and performance of followers through inspiration, empowerment, vision, and moral excellence. In essence, when I think about a transformational leader, I think about someone, number one, that has a desire to transform an organization, a community, a nation, or even another nation in another country. And I think about someone that has a strong desire to really make a difference in others' lives or to make others around them better. These are attributes of transformational leaders, and they do so, again, through inspiration. They do so through empowerment. They do so through vision and moral excellence. And as I said a couple minutes ago, again, it's all about making a difference in other people's lives. And it's why I believe these experts assert that transformational leaders commit themselves to providing workers with the tools and resources to flourish, while also believing it's their responsibility to go beyond satisfying needs through rewards towards achievement and growth. Again, it's not just about giving them a reward for their work, which we understand is transactional leadership, but it's a matter of helping them to be the best that they can become. And that's really what I believe transformational leaders are. Transformational leaders are people that are concerned about making people better. They're concerned about making organizations better. They're concerned about really making a difference or an impact in the world. And it's one of the reasons why I believe a lot of people will say that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is a great example of a transformational leader because, number one, he inspired. Number two, he empowered people. Number three, he challenged people. He brought hope. He was an example. He lived out what he said he expected of others. Obviously, he had a vision. He had a dream. He cared about people. But most importantly, his heart was really to transform this nation, and it was really to transform the lives of others that he deeply cared about. And like Dr. King, if we're going to be effective leaders, we have to strive to become these types of transformational leaders in the 21st century, because as I'm going to show you really quickly, I really do believe it's one of the styles of the future. Again, You have to be have a variety of styles for different situations when it comes to leadership, and all of them, I believe, are important in certain dynamics and in certain situations. But in regards to a broader sense, I really do believe that transformational leaders and transformational leadership is a style of the future. And I'm going to give you 4 reasons why. I think there's more, but I'm going to give you 4 really quick reasons why I believe this. The first reason why I believe it is because if you were to do research on the millennial generation, again, these are individuals born between 1977 and 1994. And again, I'm going to do more focus on the millennial generation. But again, if you have questions for other generations, we can definitely talk about that. But the first reason is that when you study the millennial generation, you'll find out, number one, they desire organization and development support. When they are working on your campus, when they're working in your department, one of the things that research has shown us is they desire support. They desire professional development. They desire growth. They also desire positive reinforcement, which is why I'm sure there's someone on the phone that can relate. They're always going to say, how am I doing? How can I do this better? I mean, they want that positive reinforcement. Number 3, they want to see the big picture. Research has shown that they want to see the whole vision. Back in the days, the CEO had the vision and the workers did their job and were concerned about the whole vision, but now they want to see the whole picture. And I think most important, which is the amazing thing about the generation, is they want to be part of something that is making a difference in the world. In essence, they want to be part of something that is truly making an impact, which is why when you come from a marketing standpoint, social cause marketing is not only something that's important, but is definitely increasing over the past decade, maybe even 15 plus years. Second reason why it's important is because studies have revealed that the most effective leadership style in an ever-changing, uncertain world is transformational leadership. And as many of you know, the job market is uncertain. Really the future of our nation, our world is uncertain to a certain degree. And again, the leadership style most conducive for those sort of times are transformational leaders. So what you're seeing in these first 2 reasons is, number one, we're already identifying with the millennial generation that transformational leadership is a style, according to research, that should be very conducive and effective with the millennial generation. And then number 2, we understand based on the times in which we live, it's also the most effective style as well. The third reason why I think it's important is because, again, when you do research on the millennial generation, you'll find that they like to be empowered. They are optimistic. We saw that in our core values. They desire constant attention from leadership. And I often tell people one of the reasons I believe this happens is because, remember, helicopter parents was popular with this generation, and helicopter parents are involved and also really doing things for their children. So obviously if you grow up with that, it's going to be a part of you when you enter the workplace. And this is probably why some of you on the phone call are probably frustrated because you feel like you're being a parent when you feel like you should not be a parent. And the last thing is I've found in research they love being a part of something bigger than themselves. And so when you look at these different characteristics and you look at these different traits, you discover that there's obviously some other styles that are conducive as well. But transformational leadership, again, seems like or is pretty clear it would be the leadership style that's conducive for this generation. And again, understand it was in 2010, I believe, where they talked about that 32%, maybe 40% of the workplace was the millennial generation. So this is the future. This is where our workplace is going. So again, if they're coming into the workplace, if they're coming into our campuses, if they're coming into our departments, if we're hiring them as assistants, as graduate assistants, obviously we've got to be aware of what leadership styles we should use to be more effective with them. And then the last reason why I believe it's important is because we are living in a time where I really believe that we need leaders who have a heart to develop and empower the next generation of leaders and have desire to make our communities, our nation, our world a better place. Sorry for the typo. Just identify that. But again, I think the fourth reason why it's important is because we're living in a time, again, where we need leaders who really have a heart to develop and empower the next generation of leaders, but also a desire to make our world, our communities, and our nation a better place. So these are 4 reasons why I firmly and strongly believe that transformational leadership is one of the leadership styles of the future. Now that we understand or have a definition of what transformational leadership is, and we understand to a certain degree why it's important. Now the question becomes, how do I implement this into my leadership style? So here comes the nuts and the bolts. How do I implement this, and how do I see the impact of this as far as my role as a leader is concerned, or even really developing the future leaders to be transformational leaders once they graduate. So this is not only something that I hope you get for yourself, but hopefully it's something that you can teach your students and really implement into them as well. So we're going to get into that. So I'm going to start with the first question. The first question we've got to ask ourselves is, do you have a heart of service? So the first question we've got to ask ourselves, if we're going to be transformational leaders, is, do we have a heart of service? Now, again, this is a popular, servant leadership model. We hear about service, and many of you are doing amazing work around service. But I do believe that if we're going to be effective transformational leaders, and really leadership in general, we have to have a heart of service. And when I define a heart of service, again, I like to define a heart of service as a person that has an authentic heart to, number one, make an impact in the lives of others, make others around them better, and then most importantly, make the world a better place. When I deal with a person with a heart of service, I'm not just looking at someone that does the work, but I'm asking myself the question, within their heart, within who they are, their authentic self, do they truly have a desire, number one, to make an impact in the lives of others, number two, to make others around them better, and then number three, to make the world a better place? These are three questions I like to ask myself to see if someone is really leading with a heart of service. And again, the reason why this is important is because when we lead with a heart of service, we become more effective at serving others. I believe we become more effective at empowering others, helping people reach their fullest potential, listening, meeting the needs of people, but most importantly, establishing a foundational piece of transformational leadership that was exemplified in the lives of leaders such as Gandhi, King, and Mother Teresa. And that's just when you think about Gandhi and you think about Dr. King and you think about Mother Teresa, one of the foundational pieces that enabled them to do great things and to really make an impact in the world and to transform people's lives is they had this foundational piece of service. And I believe this is why Dr. King says, and I quote, he says, anybody can obtain greatness because greatness is attained in service. And that's what King says, that anybody, no matter who you are, no matter what your position is, again, I don't believe leadership is position. I believe you can be a leader at any level. But he says anybody can obtain greatness because the greatness is attained in service. So he's opened our eyes to the fact that greatness is attained in our service to others, meaning I don't have to be famous. I don't have to have this national platform. I don't have to be on Fox News. I don't have to be on MSNBC. I don't have to be on CNN. I don't have to be in the New York Times. I don't have to be in NPR. I don't have to be, on the cover page of my campus newspaper. No, he says anyone can attain greatness because greatness is attained in service. In essence, you can attain greatness every day in your office, and no one ever knows about it. And I'm going to give you an example just to really paint this so you'll really be able to see it. And there's a story. It's called The Simple Truths of Service. And it's a video that I received about a year ago. And in the video, it talks about a young man by the name of Johnny. And Johnny is a bagger at a grocery store. And now, when you think about a bagger, the question becomes, can a bagger be a leader? Can a bagger make an impact in a store? I mean, his job and his role is to pack the groceries, is to scan the groceries, is to collect the money, and, just be a nice person at the counter. That's his job and his role. The CEO or the manager, they're responsible more so, for instance, for the leadership, supposedly, of the grocery store. But so Johnny's just a bagger. So, he's just a regular bagger. He's a 19-year-old kid. But Johnny does something absolutely incredible because Johnny is not satisfied just with having a job. Johnny really wants to make a difference in the lives of other people. He really wants to make a difference in the world. He really wants to make an impact in those around him. So we find now Johnny is not just satisfied with a job, but Johnny really wants to make a transformation in his store, and he wants to make a transformation in the lives of others. And now, in order for Johnny to do that, we look at the foundation of Johnny, which is this heart of service, which again is to make the world a better place, is to impact the lives of others, and really to make others around him better. And so what Johnny does is Johnny goes home and Johnny begins to think, and he begins to ponder and say, how can I make an impact in the lives of these people? I mean, I'm a cashier and I'm a bagger. What can I do? And in the sense, as he begins to think about how he can serve people more effectively, it begins to open his eyes up to an idea. I love what Gandhi says, and I should have put the quote up there. Gandhi says that people, in my own words, he said, people with service begin to discover who they are. In essence, what I interpret from that is when we have this heart of service, we really begin to discover the goodness on the inside, the ideas and the vision and the opportunities to make an impact on the inside. And I believe this is what's happening with Johnny. And so Johnny has this idea that every day he's going to come home and he's going to type out these positive words: be empowered, smile, you can do it, you're better than that, don't give up, you're beautiful. And so then he cuts out these cards, and he goes to work, and he puts the cards in the basket. So if you were going to be shopping at Johnny's store, you would walk in the store, and you would buy your groceries, and you would get home, and you take out the oranges and the apples and, say, the water and the hamburger meat, whatever the case may be. And at the bottom of the bag, there'd be this message, smile. And you can imagine my expression right now. Or there'd be like, you're beautiful. And there'd be like, don't give up. Now, although it's a simple thing, when you're facing a challenging situation, or maybe you may have had family members that never said you look good, and you see these positive words, and as someone took the time, it really does make a difference. And it's very transformational to a certain extent. And so what begins to happen is people begin to come to Johnny's store, and they wait in Johnny's line. So you have the store, and you have all these registers open, but everyone wants to wait for Johnny because Johnny is the person that is there to make an impact in their lives. And you know, I don't know about anyone. I live in one of my places I live is Los Angeles, and although I believe New York has the worst traffic in the world, they say LA does, and obviously we do have bad traffic, and traffic can become very frustrating. But these people are willing to wait in the long lines because there's a leader, there's a person there that has a heart of service. And so the line gets really, really, really big. People start coming to the grocery store. Profitability begins to increase. Johnny is a hero. Johnny is someone people look up to. Johnny is making a difference. Johnny is transforming not only the store, but he's transforming people's lives. And again, all this is happening because Johnny had a heart of service. And so the lesson that we can learn is if we're going to be transformational leaders, if we're going to make an impact in others' lives, if we're going to make an impact in our organization, on our campus, in our departments, then the question we've got to ask ourselves is do we have a heart of service, a heart, again, which is to impact others, make others around us better, and ultimately make the world a better place. And if we have that heart and we live out that heart, not only are we obtaining greatness every day, but more importantly, we'll see transformation manifest in our lives. So the first thing is, do you have a heart of service? The second question we got to ask ourselves is, have you created a vision that inspires? And the way I actually put in my notes, have you created and effectively communicated a vision that inspires other people? When I think about transformational leaders, I think about leaders that, number one, are able to create and effectively communicate a vision that I define as a clear, concise, compelling picture or image of the future. So when I think about creating a vision that inspires, my question for leaders is, do you have a clear, a concise, and compelling or captivating picture or image of the future which you're leading, or for someone else, that ultimately inspires others? This is what transformational leaders do, and the reason why it's important, because when you study transformational leadership, one of the attributes that you will see is this ability to have vision, to establish a vision and communicate a vision. This is one of the attributes of transformational leadership. And again, it's the reason why the Winston Churchills and the Abraham Lincoln and the Susan B. Anthony's and the Eleanor Roosevelts and the Dr. Kings are considered transformational leaders because, again, not only did they create a vision that was clear, concise, and captivating for the people, but even more importantly, they were able to effectively communicate that vision. And it's very important to understand that number one, your vision should inspire people. It should captivate people. It should move people to make a difference. Even in my life, I'm constantly have to go back and ask myself the question, if people aren't inspired, how can I change the vision in which I pray? Is the vision powerful enough to really move people, to compel them, to inspire them, and then even more importantly, can they see and visualize the vision in which I'm creating? This is important, but then once you have that, you have to be able to communicate it, because if you can't communicate a vision that inspires other people, you can have a great vision, you can have a great idea, but it really won't matter if you can't communicate it. And it's one of the reasons why I believe that John Connor, he's the author of Leading Change. I'm sure some of you have read the book. He talks about how effective leaders of change must create and effectively communicate their vision for change to others. In the book, he has an 8-step process of leading change. And, he talks about the urgency, and he talks about building a coalition, and he talks about establishing a vision. But then I believe it's at 4 or 5. Then he'll go on to talk about, then you must be able to effectively communicate the vision, because he goes on to say that if you can't communicate the vision, then it's going to be very difficult to see change. Because, again, when we deal with transformation, we're transforming, we're changing things, we're making things better. And I'm sure many of you are aware anytime there's change and anytime you're trying to make something better, there's going to be resistance, or there's going to be people that may not see the vision or may not understand the vision. And they may not agree with the vision. And in order to bring forth the change that you believe needs to happen, you're going to have to be able to not only give them a picture and help them see it, but you're going to have to be able to communicate it in such a way that they can catch the vision and be inspired by the vision and want to help you to create the transformation that you desire. And so when we deal with transformational leadership, we have to be able to create the vision, but also communicate it effectively. And one of my greatest examples of this concept is I was doing a speaking engagement about a year and a half ago in Los Angeles, and at the end of my presentation, a man comes up to me and he begins to talk to me. He says, "Man," he says, "it's a great speech," and then he says, "You kind of reminded me of something that transpired in my life about 20 years ago, 20 years ago," and he talked about how he was on drugs and how he was a player, and he wasn't living up to his potential. And there was a speaker that came in there, and he said the message was so powerful about his greatness, about his destiny, about him reaching his fullest potential, about transforming his life and making a change, that he said at that moment he decided to make a transformation. He said if he was to look back on his life, he had people say he should stop, he had negative experiences, but he said it was that one speaker that transformed his life. And I believe the speaker transformed his life because the speaker was not only effective at communicating to him a vision of what he saw for him, was not only effective at creating a vision that he saw for him, but he was effective at communicating that vision, at sharing that vision in such a way that it inspired him, it motivated him, it transformed him to want to make a change. And so I think the lesson that we can learn from this story and from these different transformational leaders is, if I'm going to transform students' lives, if I'm going to transform my community, if I'm going to transform my nation, if I'm going to bring about positive change, not only do I have to have a heart of service, but now I have to create and communicate a vision. Again, when I deal with vision, a clear, concise, compelling, captivating picture or image that inspires others. The vision should inspire. It should motivate. It should move people. And if you can do that, I promise you, you will start to see transformation, not only in your life, but in the lives of others as well. So this is the second question that we must ask ourselves. And the third thing that I want to focus on today is I want to focus on the question is, do you have exceptional character? Now, when I say character, I'm sure many of us have heard about character since we were in middle school, maybe elementary school, even up to high school, and I'm sure in college we hear about character. And when we deal with character, obviously most of we deal with the morals and the values. You have integrity, and you're respectful, and you're trustworthy, and you're compassionate, and you're fair, and you want the best for others, and you make ethical decisions, and you're about doing the right thing. This is all important and absolutely is a part of character. But in addition to this, I love what Dr. Henry Cloud said a few years ago in my master's program. He said morals and values are not the only part of character. He said character is also when a leader has an ability to meet the task and the demands of the leadership position in an excellent manner. He said character is not only about the morals and values, which absolutely is important, but he said character is when a leader is able to meet the task and the demands of the people in that leadership position in an excellent manner. In essence, they're competent, but also I like to say they live what they expect of others. They're a role model. They exemplify the behavior and the action in which they desire of other people. I'm not just telling you to do it. I'm actually doing it myself, and this is inspiring to people. And the reason why this is important to understand is because if you're going to be a transformational leader, not only do I believe you have to have moral excellence and lead by example, but I do also believe that you have to have exceptional character, which again I add on, you have to have an ability to meet the task and the demands of the people in which you represent in an excellent manner as a leader, because if you don't, I really do believe that it will be hard not only to impact the lives of others, but it will be hard to make a transformation. In essence, I believe that you can have the gift, you can have the charisma, you can have the knowledge, but if you have some lack in your character for the particular role or assignment as a leader, it can really have a demonstrative effect on your success. And it's really why I believe Howard Schultz, who you understand is the chairman of Starbucks, says, and I quote, he says, without character, nothing else matters, because I believe he understands that, you can have all the gifts in the world, you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you're a liar, people aren't going to want to follow you. If you can't be trusted, people are not going to want to follow you. And if you have aspects of negative character and you're not doing the job at the level you're supposed to do the job, or you're not living out what you're telling other people to live out, just those minor adjustments can literally affect everything else. And so as transformational leaders, not only is it important that we have a heart of service and that we create and communicate a vision that inspires, but now we have to have exceptional character. And one of the stories I like to always share with students is a story that, if you're from New York, you know about this guy. His name was former Congressman Weiner. And if you understand his story, you understand that according to experts, he was doing well. His constituents loved him. As you can tell, he's dressed nice. He's able to communicate. He was doing a lot of good things. But in the midst of the things he was doing as a congressman, he made a mistake. And the mistake was that he tweeted a picture of his genitals. So there's this congressman, and one day he's in his office, and he's on Twitter, and he decides to send out a tweet of his genitals. And as you guys know, anytime that a politician does something like that, the media is going to be on it. They're going to be talking about it. And so you have CNN, you have Fox, you have MSNBC, you have NPR, you have the New York Times, you have the Washington Post, you have the LA Times, you have Wall Street, you have all these newspapers and media, and they're talking about this issue. And obviously, the congressman says, well, I did not do that. My last name is Weiner, and probably someone is making a big joke about it. And he says, I did not do what they are saying. So he's lying now to the public. After about 2 days, he goes on CNN, and Wolf Blitzer sits him down and asks him the question, did you do it? And he said, no, I did not do it at all. And so he lies again. But ultimately, the truth always comes out. And about 2 or 3 days later, the truth comes out, and they find out that he actually did do it. And from that moment forward, his political career is done. So this one character or moral mistake affects his entire career. Now, one of the things I like to point out with this story, and I often like to share, is that this congressman loses his career for showing his Gentiles. Again, I don't agree with that, but his career is destroyed. But you have an industry, and again, I don't mean to be derogatory, but I just want to share this, of porn, of strip clubs, and all this stuff. That's a multi-million-dollar business that people are spending and feeding money into every single day. And it's celebrated, and it's exemplified, and you know, obviously people enjoy it. I'm not saying I agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. Don't go to strip club. I'm just making a point here. So this is what you see. So my question is, how can a politician career be destroyed when on the other end, probably the people that support the congressman probably also may be at strip club to do the board, but they destroy him, but they celebrate this other act in different environments. Like why is that fair? Is it okay? You know, we believe in equality. You know, why is this happening? And one of the things I like to share with students is the reason why this is happening is because the character, again, meaning the task, the demands of your position as a manner is different and has a different, higher standard than the character of a stripper. There's certain things that the stripper is doing, and there's certain things that the congressman is to do. And the congressman can't do the same thing. There's a higher standard in which the leadership position represents. And so because he did not walk in the character that was expected of him as the congressman, his entire career is destroyed. And so the lesson that we can learn from this, and I tell students this all the time, is if I'm going to be a transformational leader, if I'm really going to make an impact in my organization or make an impact in the lives of others, I got to have a picture of what does exceptional character look like for me in order to transform the lives of students or transform the lives of others. If I'm telling students to be responsible, am I being responsible? If I'm telling students to be on time, am I being on time? If I'm telling students to be honest, am I being honest? Because, again, if I'm not living out what I'm expecting of others, it's going to affect me from becoming a transformational leader. So, again, when we deal with transformational leadership, we understand as I move forward in the 21st century, not only is it important that I have a vision that inspires, not only is it important that I have a heart of service, but now it's important that I have exceptional character as well. It is literally 1:45 and 10:45, so I have about 15 minutes left, and obviously I kind of want to go into leading with purpose. So I guess I'll ask Ross, is there any questions right now, Ross? Because I can go into my fourth point as well, but is there any questions?
We do have one question that I've seen, but so I don't think that, that will take the whole 15 minutes. So basically there's one question if you want to keep going, and then maybe save time for that one question, and people can continue to ask questions. Again, please use the Q&A box or the chat box there to the right. So it's up to you if you'd like to answer this question now or save time for that and go ahead and go into what it is that you would like to be talking about.
Okay, yeah, I'll go to my next point. I'll go one more point. The last point I'll share to you today that I believe is important when we deal with transformational leadership is: are you leading with purpose? When you think about transformational leaders and you think about people that transform organizations or transform the lives of others, they always have this sense of purpose. Now, when I deal with leading with purpose, I like to define leading with purpose as a person that has a set of passionate reasons why they do what they do. In essence, when a person is leading with purpose, they have a set of passionate reasons why they're doing what they do. There's a reason why I am doing what I am doing as a leader. And the reason why this is important, that you have a set of reasons why you do what you do, is because not only does this increase performance, not only does it increase passion, not only does it help you be more effective at getting others involved, but more importantly, when a person leads with purpose, they will be more effective not only at inspiring and motivating themselves, but they'll be more effective at inspiring, influencing, and motivating the lives of others. People that lead with purpose are not only extremely motivated themselves, but they're very effective at inspiring and influencing the lives of others, because one of the keys to inspiring and motivating other people is being able to answer the why question. This is why I believe Simon Sinek says, and I quote, he says, if you hire people just because they can do a job, they'll work for your money. But if you hire people who believe what you believe, they'll work for you with blood, sweat, and tears. And I love how he said, if you have people that are there just to get a job, just to have something to do, they're going to give you half. But if you can get them to understand why it's important, why they should be on time, why they should show up early, why they need to be there, why it's important, why this transformation is important, what begins to happen is that passion and that empowerment and that inspiration begins to rub off on other people. And a lot of times I believe that people have a hard time motivating others because they're not leading with a set of reasons why. Instead of telling people why they should follow and do what you're doing, I'm telling them what to do. But again, people with purpose start with the why. This is why it's important. This is why you should do it. This is why I'm passionate about it. This is why we need to get here early. This is why I need to make a sacrifice. They have the why, and then the why leads into the what. And once you have the what, they're already being inspired to be part of the what because they understand the why behind the what. And one of the greatest examples that I like to use for this concept is and again, I like to use Dr. King. I'm going to use Dr. King today. I like to use Dr. King because when you think about Dr. King, we're going to be celebrating MLK in January, and many people are going to come to your campuses, or they're going to give these messages, and they're going to be on the news, and they're going to talk about the I Have a Dream speech, and they're going to talk about the civil rights movement, and they're going to talk about equality, and they're going to talk about the struggle, and they're going to say, where have we been? And all that stuff is very important, and it's very valid. But if you really study, I believe, the movement, I believe the most profound aspect of the movement was the nonviolent movement. If you really look deeply into the civil rights movement, look deeply into the life of Dr. King, the foundational piece of this movement was this nonviolent movement, and I'm sure many of you are aware of it, this movement that if they hate you, if they talk about you, do all the negative stuff to you, do not respond back to them the same way. Love those who do evil or hate you or do you wrong. This is a foundational block of the nonviolent movement. Now, the question becomes, from a leadership standpoint, Dr. King, how can you inspire a people that are being spit on, shot at, churches being bombed, dogs are being sicked on, going to jail for no reason? How can you inspire people that are fed up, that are irritated, to not respond when some people's natural reaction is to respond when someone does something negative to them? How can you get people to forgive people that are doing them wrong? I mean, it's hard enough to forgive our enemies. How do you do that? Well, the way he was able to do that is he was able to give them a reason why this movement of nonviolence was important. The reason he was able to inspire people to follow him in nonviolence, to believe in nonviolence, to love those that hate him, the reason he was able to do that is because he was able to give them a why this would bring forth the positive outcome that it actually brought forth for Dr. King. So in essence, what we see from this situation is we see that Dr. King is able to inspire people. He's able to help people to reach their fullest potential because he is leading with purpose by giving people the reason why they are doing what they're doing. And if we were to go from a higher ed professional standpoint, I'm trying to bring the most out of the student, but instead of telling the student to do it, figure out to find out how can I get the student to understand why what they are doing is important. And again, when we understand this, certain times, you may have one strategy, it may not work, you may have to go another strategy. And this is part of leadership, is figuring out how can I adjust my style, adjust my strategy to get them to understand the why. Because if you get the student or you get the people or the leader to understand the why, they will go above and beyond what you could have ever imagine. And this is what transformational leaders are able to do. transformational leaders are able to get people to be inspired, are able to influence people, and are able to get people to do things they normally would not do because they are able to establish the why and to lead with purpose versus just giving the what. So again, if I'm going to effectively serve as a transformational leader in the 21st century, if I'm going to model and exemplify and live out this leadership style of the 21st century, number one, I have to reflect, ask myself the question, do I have a heart of service? And then number two, I got to ask myself the question, have I created and have I effectively communicated a vision, clear, concise, compelling picture, image of my future that inspires? And then number three, do I have exceptional character? Am I living in the behavior in which I expect of others? Am I doing my job in an excellent manner, which is inspirational in itself? And then the last thing, am I leading with purpose? Is there a set of positive reasons why I am doing what I'm doing? Now, again, as I said earlier, there's several more things that could be talked about. But those are the four that I want to share with you today. Again, grateful to be here, thankful to be here. And Ross, I'm all ready to answer questions.
All right, well, fantastic. So the first question that we have is, what are some suggestions that you have for working with study abroad students who are with us and within a global context for only a semester or for a year?
As far as just what are my experiences working with international students in general?
I think what are some of the suggestions that you have in transformational leadership with some of those students that are in not only those generational aspects and attributes, but working also in the context of a global society or a society outside of that of America?
Okay, awesome. I think that the term I use, people competence, and I think the first thing to do when you're dealing internationally or dealing with cultural students or global leaders is, number one, just to understand them and get an opportunity to figure out who they are. I think that's number one is understanding who they are and getting to know, learn about what type of person they are, learn about their culture, learn about their norms, learn about what they've learned, learn about it's a really matter of just sitting down and getting to know who they are. And then once I understand who they are, I believe the next step is figuring out what sort of things can I do in order to help them to reach their fullest potential. Now, again, to understand them and to figure out what style works to most effectively impact them, number one, I'm going to have a heart of service because I got to care. I got to be willing to listen, and I got to really want the best for them, and I got to be willing to be patient with them, and I got to really take the time to really understand them because it's going to take time because there's going to be there's going to be changes that are going on. And then number two, I'm going to have a vision. I'm going to have to be able to communicate a vision. I'm going to have to be able to help them to see what I'm trying to get them to see within themselves. I'm going to have to be able to explain to them why it's important, the purpose piece. And then I'm going to have to be able to model that behavior because, I have a daughter and she's 4.5 years old. And a lot of the things that she learns is not just what I tell her, but it's what I model and what I do. And so in addition to connecting with international students, number one, I got to understand them. And in understanding them, these are attributes that I have to model. And then once I understand them, I got to figure out now what can I do, what styles can I use to really get the most out of them. And again, that I always say that's trial and error. That takes time to really figure out what works because personalities may be different. Then things they may not understand. That takes time. And again, that's why I think you have to have our service because people are hard, so they're patient. And they take time to really get to know the person. So basically answer the whole question, understand them, and then figure out what style or what lessons have you learned to be most effective at getting the most out of them. And again, that depends on the person. There's several different ways. The extrovert may be motivated differently from the introvert. If you've done the personality with true colors, you understand that there's blue, there's the gold, there's the green. Blue, gold, orange and green, there's different personality differences. In order to reach these different personalities, there's certain things you have to do. And so those are some of the things that I believe you have to figure out in order to get the most out of them. Hope I answered that question. Good.
All right, great, thank you. The next question we have is, how does one inspire a vision that comes from someone else and or working within multiple visions?
That's great. How does one inspire the... This is a good question. I think number one, it's important to understand the vision, or if you're a group, it's a matter of coming together And what I like what the Leadership Challenge talks about, creating an inspired shared vision. So bringing all your visions together in one that everyone agrees upon. I think that's number one, is establishing a vision that involves everyone else's vision that everyone agrees upon. I think that's the first step towards getting people involved. And then once we have an inspired shared vision, once we've created this vision where all the parties are involved, I believe all the parties are on board, all the parties are able to add their perspective into the vision. And once we get the collective vision where everyone's, I guess, their needs and desires are included, then the next step that comes after that is figuring out, okay, how can I get this message out to inspire others? And again, in getting the message out to inspire others, number one, I love what Cotter said about building a coalition, is getting a group of supporters from these different places to support the vision. So you have more people that are pushing home this vision. And then I think, again, number two is understanding who you're trying to get to understand the vision. Again, it all goes back to understanding people and knowing how can I communicate this vision in such a way that others are going to want to be on board. And I also want to clarify, I'm glad you said, and also making sure that you're just as enthusiastic and passionate about the vision as the people that have created. You know, there was a study at Stanford University, and it was a sales study. I actually talk about this when I say how to inspire. And in this study, there was these salespeople, and they sold this product, and then they asked the people that bought the product, they said, well, after you bought the product, how many of you actually were, you know, what caused you to buy the product? And what was so amazing about this is 85% said it was the enthusiasm and the passion of the salesperson that made them want to buy the product, whereas 15% was in technique, which really points out to us again that once we come together and have the vision and inspires the group and with the coalition, now as we go to speak the message, not only do we understand, again, the people in which we're communicating the message to, but we have to be as passionate about it as well. So.
All right, great, thank you. And I think we have time for maybe one more question. And so far that is, how do you get all students involved in an HBCU where leadership programs are predominantly and historically driven by African American students?
Okay, that's a great question. How do you, this is a very interesting thing. I think number one, this is a very interesting thing, and I'll share this. If you were, it's really interesting to me when it comes to leadership from a cultural standpoint, because if you were to go to the bookstore today, if you were to go to Barnes and Noble and you were to go to the leadership department, you'll rarely see an African American, really a woman, or a person of color expert in the area of leadership. You rarely see that. And it's one of the things, it's a really interesting thing to me, and I can go deeper into that. But in dealing with HBCU, I think number one is getting people to understand the importance of it. And again, one of the things I tell people all the time, there was a study, it really gets people to understand it's needed as far as success is concerned. And I didn't get a chance to share this, but one of the studies that I discovered in 2009, there was an article in Business Week, and they discovered that 50% of the top companies that launch a career said leadership skill set was the number one quality they most desire. So this is in 2009. So obviously companies are looking for people that have leadership skill set. There was another study by the National Association of College Employees that came out last year in the fall, and they found that I believe approximately 75% to 80% of employers are looking for students or graduates with leadership experience on their resumes. So I think the first motivation for an HBCU is to understand that companies, which again I believe you go to college not only to learn about yourself, to educate yourself, but ultimately to be prepared for the 21st century workforce. To understand that's the number one priority, get them jobs in an interesting economy. I think those in itself show you the importance of stressing leadership and helping them to understand that. And I personally, and again, I haven't been to many HBCUs, but again, what I see from my research in leadership, in the study of leadership, I often tell people leadership. I believe that you can have the ability to be a leader, but in order to be a great leader, you have to be developed. And so I think in the times in which we live, we need great leaders. And so if we're going to develop great leaders in our community, then we have to have a leadership program in the HBCUs. But again, it's not just important to show them that. It's also important to show them that if we do not develop these leadership programs in our HBCUs, it's going to affect the future of the students. And if we really care about the future of our students, then we really care about leadership, because that has a direct impact on their future. And also, I mean, just so that in itself, it really just affects their future. It affects the future generation. It affects our community. It affects our nation, our world. If we don't have effective leaders, things are going to go down. But even more importantly, from the standpoint as far as career success is concerned, it's important there. So being able to identify the research, being able to identify the reasons why, and to share the vision of what the leadership program may look like, I believe that could be a step in helping HBCUs understand the importance of leadership programs.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I think that's all the time that we have for questions. But with that, I'll give it to Joshua one final time. Is there anything that you have, any final thoughts that you would like to leave with the group?
I guess my thought would be, I love the quote by Gandhi. He says, "Be the change that you wish to see in the world." And I tell people, it's a great quote, but the power point of that entire quote to me is he says, "Be the change which you wish to see." The key thing is see. And so if we believe in transformation and we really believe in impacting students' lives, I think it's important every day to wake up and have that vision and that desire and that passion to really make the lives of others better. And I think if we have that vision, if we have that sight every day, I really do believe that we'll be able to really make the world a better place, as well as make the lives of others better as well. So those are my closing words.
All right, great closing words they are. Thank you again, Joshua, so much for being here. And I want to tell this to the group. We appreciate presenters like Joshua and others. They give their time and their energy to really do this, because basically this is one of the hallmarks of the Student Leadership Program's knowledge community, is getting folks around the computer screen to talk about these things going on in leadership and to continue to have those conversations. So I hope that this was a time that was well spent with you all. I know that I got a lot out of it and had my piece of paper and pen out, writing different things so I could remember and also take it to others as well. Also, this presentation has been recorded, so we will be making that available to the registrants as well. If there's anything that you forget or you want to go back and get a little bit of clarification on, you can see that. With that as well, Joshua here has given you his contact information as far as Facebook and Twitter, so please make sure that you reach out to him if you have any questions or anything along those lines. So with that, I want to again thank Joshua, and then finally kind of give a plug again for the Student Leadership Program's Knowledge Community webinars in general. If you or someone else you know is interested in presenting to the knowledge community, please reach out to me. Email is beitzjr@uga.edu here at the University of Georgia. Working in the Center for Leadership and Service. So if you would, please pass me an email and we can talk about getting the information and the research or the programs that you've worked with, getting all that knowledge and experience out to the knowledge community. If no one has any more questions, or if Joshua doesn't have any more statements, I just want to once again thank him so much for being here and for giving us this great knowledge, and thank you all for being here, continuing that conversation, and going out and really being the change that you want to see in the world. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great afternoon. Oh, yeah, go for it.
No, yes, and awesome. No, thank you so much again. It was a pleasure. It's an honor, and I had a great time, so thank you so much.
Fantastic. Well, with that, I hope you all have a great day. Again, contact us if you have any questions. Contact Joshua. You have his contact information. Us about this presentation, about further presentations, anything like that, and we will be getting back with you shortly regarding slides of this presentation as well as the recording for you to be able to go back and take a look if you had any questions. Thank you again so much for being here, and hope you all have a great day.
Yes.